Only made up. And she got eyebrows. She got cheeks. And she got lips.
Okay. Is that okay?
I think she said if you hit it up, it goes to mute. So
Don't hit it
yeah,
up.
it should be on
Sure. Hello.
and firing for you now. So is it?
It- so can I? Hello, hello. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just for those.
Just for, okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna give you. So
Well, you're gonna be
am I
intro.
I will. I'm gonna do it. I am. I'm gonna introduce
Okay.
you. I'm gonna be like on the mic.
Whatever you.
Exactly. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, and I know that was totally led by you, Whitney. You totally did that. All right. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. We have a couple of folks on Zoom as well. This mic is for the Zoom audience, so I hope you can hear me. We're really excited about this. Bridget and I are like bursting at the seams about this work because, yeah, it might be easier. Yes, come get closer. You want them here? Here? Like here? Right here. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you, ladies. Yes. Okay. I think we have. Woo! Get on in here. Get in here. Come on. I know we can start when we see a dad in the room. Come on, dads. Let's do this. All right. All right. So last year we were really fortunate to have Nedra, who is a parent of two now in the upper school. Middle and upper. We missed the kids, but we have middle and upper. So their family came here pretty much during COVID. And so we were lucky enough to find out that Nedra really is steeped in sort of mindfulness work, and really working a lot with young students. So was doing some work at St. Francis. In New York as well, primarily with sort of school-age kids, so third grade, fourth grade, some middle school. And so last year, we were fortunate to get her information. Bridget and I had a conversation with her. Had a conversation with her and talked her into, and it did not take long to pull her into this, talked her into doing a 5-week mindfulness class with our fourth graders, now fifth graders. Basically sort of going through, it's Pebble meditation. She's going to talk through all of what that is. I'm not going to steal her thunder on that. But basically it was a way for us to, for me, extend what we're doing in terms of our wellness initiatives here holistically, JK through 12, to bring it down to lower school. Because the truth of the matter is a lot of our teachers, through their own either personal experiences with meditation or just professional, like they just love it. So they've gone out and they've taken some classes. There's lots of meditation meditation sort of practices happening, breathing, transitioning as we're going to places, getting kids to settle. We've been doing this for a number of years. Bridget's more recently started to incorporate a lot more like explicitly into what she's doing, helping the kids kind of settle, because when she comes in, oftentimes they're like this. So really giving them time to breathe and get themselves together and to regulate themselves before they start their next class. Because our kids, they're on the go. You know that they move all day long. And so giving them that time just to process. And for us as a school, you know, again, it's not about a religion. It really is about them being able to regulate their sort of bodies and their minds to get ready to go to the next place, but finding that really safe, quiet place to do it. And so she did the 5 weeks last year. And then, you know, like everything in independent schools is like, well, we got something. Let's keep her doing this. So now not only is Nedra working again with fourth grade, we're going to kick off their first meeting actually is today. You're having sort of a talk with Nedra. Bridget's talking to the fourth graders today. They'll start their 5 weeks next week. We're doing it consecutively. So everybody's going to see her once a time during those 5 weeks, and then we'll have a wrap up. But she's also extended that. So there's a bridge between the lower school, and she's working with this year's fifth grade who had it last year in fourth grade. So we now have mindful work in lower school, we have it in middle school, and then I'm really excited because I get a chance to co-teach the co-mindfulness in the upper school with seniors. So we really are, as a school, trying to think about what's the best way to help our kids be really healthy and really, again, capable of just sort of thinking, this is a moment where I can reset myself and then go on to the next thing. And so I'm really excited about working with Nedra again. I'm really excited about her partnering directly with Bridget because this is coming out of our cornerstone. So Bridget will be with her for each of the classes like she was last year. So again, she can continue to build her ability to take this information and move forward. We love you, Nedra.
Oh,
Right, thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you,
perfect.
Dr. Bridgewater. Are you going to hang with us, or do you have to?
I'm gonna run really quick because it's gonna call me and I'll be back.
Right on.
I will be
Do what
back.
you need to
Be
do.
right back.
Hello, how's everybody today? Good, good, good. So as Dr. Bridgewater so lovingly said, I came to Collegiate. I know a couple of you guys, other faces look very, yes, very familiar. I'm tuning in here and seeing who we have. So I don't know all of you, but it's great to meet you. I'm Nedra. So my two girls, 7th grade and junior in high school. And we came here from New York when our older started 9th grade, which was right in the heart of COVID. So it was tough because that transition to a new school is always tough, but doing it when it's in lockdown, and it's a very difficult transition anyway, it was tough. But you know what? She stuck to it. We supported her the best way we could, and she's still here and still loving it. One of the things that drew me to the school was when we came to do our tour, Dr. McCrae, he talked about doing inner work and how important it was to, you know, really work with our children as whole body, inner and outer, you know, to really dive into that mindfulness work. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. I love this stuff. This is exactly what I love to do. This is what I've been doing. So he and I connected right away on that. And he's like, you know, I'm probably going to need your help when I start to do more of this stuff and start to kind of figure out ways that we can do this in the lower school, the middle school, upper school. So I was like, hey, this is wonderful. This is what I love to do. I originally studied acting in New York City. I did that whole thing for a long time. And then I thought, you know, at some point I was like, I remember one of my instructors talking about presence, being in the moment. And I was like, wow, I never really knew as an actor what it was to be present in the moment until I started doing mindfulness work. Because then pausing, breathing, being truly here in the moment is a very different thing than being a character and being present on the stage, you know, being present truly here, like listening, tuning into all the things that are going on around you. It's a very different kind of presence. So once I learned that, like, wow, this is really what it means to be present. This is what it really means to like be truly involved with yourself, your inner self. And I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to do a lot more of this. And like everything else we do in life, the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So that's one of the things I always say to the kids is like, this may seem foreign to you initially. And when I work with adults as well, like they're like, I can't make my mind stop. I can't calm my mind down. No one can initially. It's really hard. It takes a lot of practice. So, this practice that we're doing with the fourth graders, because I will just go all over the place. I'm going to try to just keep myself in one vein here for you guys with the fourth graders. We're just doing a little intro. And we're going to do, as Dr. Bridgewater said, 5 classes. It is a wonderful way to bring kids into the moment using something as an anchor. I always usually have a rock in my pocket. It's just one of those things that grounds me when I reach in my pocket. And I got like a special, association, a special something with a lot of stones. Some adults are like, whatever. And then I know a lot of adults who are like, I do that too. Like that's, so it's just something that with kids, especially in like the 4th grade, you give them something that they can touch, that they can anchor, and we'll go more into that. When they're sitting and learning to be quiet, it's like pulling them in the center, holding something that they can have to think about, to make an association with like a mountain, like still water. These are 2 of the elements. We'll talk about all 4. So that feeling of sitting with a mountain is grounding. It helps to bring in strength when you need it. It can help to bring in a lot of thoughts and feelings and needed grounding when you find yourself in a position. The first part of that is recognizing that you need to do that, right? That's one of the most important things, which kids learn pretty quickly. And then being able to sit with that, knowing that I have 4 pebbles. Which of these are, do I need to sit with at this moment? Do I really feel like I need to sit with still water or a mountain? And then they learn that. And it's very empowering for a child to be able to know, like, wow, if they're in I'll give you a very good example. When my 7th grader was in kindergarten, we started this practice with several families in Seacliff in New York, where we lived on the North Shore of Long Island. So I was introduced to this Pebble meditation. All the 3rd grade classes at that school were doing this every day. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I love this. This is a really cool practice. They actually built their little pouches. They cut them and they, sewed them together and made the little cinch. They picked their stones. And each 3rd grade teacher sat every day once they taught the basics of the Pebble meditation. And the kids would pull out whichever stone, like a mountain or still water, flower, space. Those are the 4 elements. They would sit in what they needed at that moment. Do they feel like they needed more space? How does that resonate with them at that moment? So they can sit every day. And I'm sure there were days that they didn't. Most days they did. Identifying what they needed. And these are elements of that relate to kids with science, connection to the earth, connection to each other, and mostly connection to themselves. So these 4 elements are brilliantly laid out in a way that connect kids in many ways and are very easy to sit with and anchor. They kept their pouches in the classroom. And when Arden, my older one, came home and started to tell me like what was going on daily with this practice, I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. And then I got to know the teachers better. And even before that in this school, when Arden was in 1st grade, one of my best mindfulness mentors was her first grade teacher. She's just such a brilliant woman. She taught for so many years, and she would have a hypothesis on huge letters across the side of her classroom that said, if we slow down, can we get more done? As first graders. So they're like, at first, initially, the parents would come in for conferences and be like, how's that working for you? Does that really help? And then she would start to tell you about what was unfolding in the classroom. And she would do little mini meditations and really embrace the idea of giving them space, giving them some time. And even in the hallways, her classroom was always one of the classes that would be slowly walking, doing their thing, and it was just that she imprinted on them from the beginning that they could slow down and have some space. So, dear Miss Miller taught me that initially when Arden was in first grade. That was 10, 12 years ago now. So from that moment on, and then to see this Pebble meditation in the third grade, all of that time I was thinking, okay, cool, this is really what I want to do. So I took classes through Mindful Schools, learned more and more and more, read all the books I could find, did all the stuff, and have since then, the past 9 years, been doing many, many, many things to learn as much as I can about this kind of work. So with all of that said, Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's one of the sort of best minds and hearts in the Western world to bring mindfulness into daily lives. He is out of Boston, at Boston University. I always say, is it Boston University or University of Boston? He's at Boston University. Okay, thank you. My daughter's actually looking at that school, I think, in a few weeks, but I got to get that right. So he, as a doctor, psychologist, he is just an amazing person. He has tons of books. You can find him anywhere you look online to talk about mindfulness. He has many wonderful guided meditations. But his definition really sums it up nice and simple. Mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So mindfulness is a word that we all hear probably a lot these days. Maybe 5 years ago, you didn't hear it a lot. Some people are probably like, oh, God, do I have to hear about that again? And there are some kids who are like, please don't make me do this. So as with anything we do, there are going to be some people who love it and embrace it immediately. Some people who it's just not their thing right now. It's just not where they are on their path. And that's okay. Wherever you are is where you begin. And that's kind of how we like to do this practice with the fourth and the fifth graders. The fifth graders now are in the 2.0 level. And I'm just saying, I had them write comments. I'm doing 10 classes with them through the year. And at class 5, which was just before the holidays, I had them write comments and give me ideas of like what we could do to change it, what we could do to make it better, what you like about it. And I'm not kidding you. There were 90% of the comments were positive.
And when we did this last year, I would just add the fourth graders were so engaged. Yeah. Like I really didn't know, because it was the first time we had piloted this, how it would go. They loved it. I mean, I would say that most of them found something meaningful.
And the questions they ask. I know, right? Because you're like, are they going to sit quietly? Are they going to, well, the fifth grader, that's only a 30-minute block. With the fourth graders, it's a 50, 40? Okay, 40. Yep.
And this is like maybe a 3-part question.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing this in a group setting versus trying to do this on your own. You're teaching kids in a group setting versus just teaching your own child, maybe like, oh, you're upset, like, you should sit down and calm down.
Yep.
But in a group setting, how do you normalize it so that if hypothetically a bunch of like kids were kind of feeling nervous about being quiet in a room with a bunch of their peers and they start giggling, I feel like that's normal.
Yep.
Then how do you normalize that for them and then hit the reset button? Because I'm so thrilled to hear that fourth grade last year did well. I just think that can be sometimes difficult for kids. And then you don't want to like, if this is something that's supposed to be like a positive thing that you want people to eventually like buy into, you know, you don't want to be like, you can go out in the hallway and just come down, you know, this is, how do you do it so that you're not making kids feel like they're in trouble if they can't get it right quickly?
Sure. That's an awesome question. So first of all, I will say Bridget and I paired up, whereas she's in the classroom with me, she knows these students initially very well. She's now will have been with them for half of the school year, or no, for instance, because like a lot of them have been here for a long, long time. Yes, yes. So she knows these kids very well. So she will come in, and this is last year we had, if any, because with the fourth graders, they're sitting in their desks, which I think immediately creates a scenario where they're not able to be as like in each other's faces and doing this stuff. Whereas the fifth graders were down in the dance studio on yoga mats. And so that does, and I will tell you, the kids that are being distracting, the ones that don't want them to be distracting, will say, you guys need to stop. Like a lot of times the kids will correct rather than me. And I'm like, I love it. And in the comments, one kid wrote, you need to do assigned mats so these kids are not distracting the whole class. So, I mean, again, it takes all kinds, and there's always going to be a few that are more fidgety, and as we all would have probably been at that age and stage.
I will say, like, just, I don't know if I should use this.
Oh, yeah.
So that the video picks it up. So one thing I've been doing, I set a professional goal for myself at the beginning of the year, Jesse, that is related to the core competencies that we're working on. So I set a professional goal that at the start of every Cornerstones class, I'm doing like 1 to 5 minutes of some sort of mindful activity, whether that's sitting in silence, whether that's breathing, whether that's reflecting on gratitude with a written reflection. I'm about 90% there, remembering to tuck that in at the very beginning. So a little bit of pre-training, I feel like, leading up to her coming in with more explicit lessons about Pebble meditation. And then the way she sets up her classes is she does a lot of really thorough instruction at the beginning, and we don't do any sitting and meditating until the very end of class. So it gives them a lot of time to sort of process the information. She presents videos, books, ways for them to sort of understand what the expectation is. And you do normalize, I feel like, that it is okay that this is hard and it's challenging and that it takes practice. And so even if there's giggling, movement, kids that are, you know, having trouble maybe controlling a foot on a chair or something like that, it's really, they were really supportive of each other because of how she kind of sets it up. So yeah.
So it's just for that reason, I'm like, kindergarten or first graders would probably be like,
Yeah.
and the fourth grade just said,
Yeah.
really curious.
What's really nice, though, developmentally about fourth graders that I notice is that even if they are not really totally bought into the practice of sitting mindfully for a minute, they will sit quietly while they're friends. There's enough of a relationship built, peer friendships, I feel like, and just respect in the classroom at this point, that it really wasn't a problem at all last year. I mean, every class is going to be different, but I have full faith. I think they will do an excellent job. They're supportive of each other enough that I think they will sit, even if they're not kind of going through, you know, the trying to, you know, work on the pebbles, but I feel like they were really respectful.
Yeah, I agree. It was a fantastic group, and it was so awesome to come back and work with them as fifth graders. Really, really cool. So let's just go up to like, you know what? Let's watch the video real quick. So this is an example, and I show this to them on day one. I don't know if this is a very popular video. You may have already seen it. If you haven't, it's wonderful.
There is a story, usually attributed to the Native American tradition, which illuminates different ways of paying attention. An elder, talking to a child, says, "I have 2 wolves fighting in my heart. One wolf is fearful, vengeful, envious, resentful, and deceitful. The other wolf is compassionate, loving, generous, truthful, and peaceful." The child asks, "Which wolf will win the fight?" The elder responds, "The one I feed." That doesn't mean we try to deny or hurt or kill the angry wolf. If we did that, we'd end up in a long battle, all the while somehow making that wolf more powerful through our hostility and fear. Hating that wolf sucks the strength right out of us. Instead, we calmly pay attention to the angry wolf and let go of believing they have the answers. If we can do that, they end up lying down next to us, no longer an enemy. We help strengthen the kind and loving wolf, giving it nourishment and support so that we can follow it. That peaceful wolf can become our steady companion and show us the way through all kinds of different life experiences. Restful or chaotic, enjoyable or disappointing experiences may come and go, but we can have a guide with us through it all. This is what mindfulness can help you do. Mindfulness allows us to see our thoughts and feelings as they are beginning. It's very powerful to know what we're feeling as we're feeling it, know what we're thinking as we're thinking it. With mindfulness, we can choose what will strengthen and bring into action, and we can choose what we will gently let go of. We don't have to be at the mercy of old habits or old ways of thinking or old ways of being. We are empowered. It just takes practice.
I love that video. So, yeah, I show that to them on the first day, and then I circle back and show it to them at the end to see, revisiting those very lovely basic concepts, and then get their thoughts, of course, in the beginning, and then get their thoughts at the end of what may have changed for you. How do you feel about this now? Just as a general, wrap up to kind of bring it full circle. So would you scroll up to day 1, please? Thank you. That's all right. So going back to like what we do day to day in the class, just to give you an idea. So like on the first day, we'll show them this definition, introducing mindfulness and what it is, what sort of experience they have with it. They have any prior knowledge, or have they ever done anything with this kind of work and practice? To their parents or people that they know do meditation, do anything like that. So we get a good understanding of that. Then what is pebble meditation? So for you guys, I kind of started talking about what the pebbles are, what we do with them, but they will each get a pouch like this on the first day, and we will allow them to choose 4 different pebbles. You pass them out or pass them around. And there's all kinds of different gemstones and things they can pick around that size. So the 4 elements that these pebbles are representing for them is still water, flower, mountain, and space. So we cover each of these 4 elements. So we have 5 classes. 4 of those classes will be spent with each of the elements, doing books and activities and different things. And then, so what we do also is like on the whiteboard, let's do space. When we're talking about space, how does that relate to them personally? How does that relate to them as a community? How does that relate to them on an inner level, a physical level? We do a lot of work as human beings on our physical and mental well-being, but to work to pull those together, to bring our hearts and minds together when we're working on things. So with space, outer space, you're welcome. Have a great day. You're like, through COVID, we learned a lot about space, personal space, being 6 feet, being, having that space around us as individuals, according to someone that we're sitting next to, or a stranger, or whatever it is. And that was a lesson for all of us in space. Then you talk about, the outer space, the vast amount of space. So there's a lot of different ways that you can relate to that. What we're doing is trying to get them to find a relationship to space that they can have a representation of in their hand And when they sit with it, what is it that I need in this moment? I'm feeling like I just, maybe I don't really want to be here in this moment. Maybe I want to be somewhere else. Maybe it's this person is making me uncomfortable. Okay, I'm sorry. No worries. Things are going on in the room that are really bothersome to them. Whatever it is that they can make that association with in that moment, to sit and learn that having an anchor, being still, not for a long time. We don't expect kids to sit still for a long time. Once they learn that sitting still for just a couple of minutes, with that thought, with that feeling that comes up for them with space or flower or mountain or still water, that's very empowering for them. I'll go back to telling a story about my kindergartner. I think I started that and I didn't finish it. When Tess was in kindergarten, we were still in New York. Arden made her really mad and then went off to dance class. And Tess came to me. She had been doing pebble meditation with the group. And she came to me in that moment and said, I'm going to go sit and meditate. Like, she didn't say it like that. I'm going to go sit and meditate, and she went and got her little pouch and I want to get my flower stone or whatever. So she pulled out her flower pebble and she sat on the couch. I didn't invade her space. I didn't go in there. I didn't do anything she did her thing. And it was just a couple of minutes that it took for her to sit, knowing that that is what she needed in that moment. And then I'm going to go draw. And then she went to draw. And then whatever expression came up out of what had just happened for her that she could put onto paper to draw as a kindergartner. So kids get these concepts at a very young age, and they can learn to use them at a very young age. And from that moment, after she had done that, it was all okay. And it was all done and instigated from her, knowing that that's what she needed. So, that concept can be hard for a lot of us as adults. A lot of us, just the initial knowing that we need to pause is tough. We are moving so fast every day, and there's so much coming at us every day for the most part, that we feel sometimes guilty if we pause and give ourselves some space. But a lot of us need that. I do. I tend, as you probably notice, I get nervous a little bit. I'm talking, especially parents. I could talk to kids all day, but like parents, I'm like, oh, yeah. But learning, you practice and you get better. So the point of these 4 elements, we talk about each of these. We write words on the whiteboard. What does still water mean for you? And I bring up beautiful images of these things. And so they think, and they come up with some really cool ideas, like mountain. What does that bring up for you? What kind of feelings, what kind of things do you think about when we talk about mountains? And gosh, there's a lot of things that come up, and they come up with such cool things. And so that from their peers and from themselves, making those associations, then they can draw from that when they're sitting with each of these pebbles. So it's not just saying, oh, you have to think of your own things. It's all coming together on a whiteboard for them, so that then they can, so they don't feel bad if they're like, oh, I can't think of anything for a flower, like what does the flower mean? I don't know. But we talk about it and help them, to be able to figure those things out, giving them ideas. So that's essentially the pebble meditation, the 4 elements, sitting with them. We have them get the pouches, pick out their pebbles on the first day. Another thing that we do is we use glitter jars. You guys have probably seen one of these at some point. And if you haven't, these things are used in counselor and therapy offices around the world. And Lisa D'Amour, who wrote Untangled and I don't know, at least 1 or 2 other books, brilliant woman who wrote wonderful books about children and behavior. And I remember her telling a story in one of her books about one of her dear friends who's a counselor in Texas. And anytime a student comes in all frazzled and upset, the first thing she does is pull out her glitter jar. And she's like, just shake it, set it down. And then we'll talk. After they watch all the glitter settle, it's like magic. I don't know how it works necessarily. Well, we'd see how it works, but like it really does induce this just feeling that all that glitter and all those little things that are falling are just like the tenseness, the stress, the whatever is keeping our jaw clenched or whatever is keeping our shoulders raised. If we watch that, and maybe you need to watch it 3 times, maybe you need to watch it more than once, but it really works. There's a few times I've seen it not work. For the most part, the kids are always asking to do those. So we do those at the beginning of class and introduce those. This one's pretty cool. The water brand that I use is called Voss. They have these big bottles, and then they have the small ones like that. This one, having the stars in it, sometimes brings on a whole new feeling that kids like to watch. So we use those, and they do really, really love those. Several had said they had made them in other classes, but I always recommend those as having those in classrooms as a tool when a kid really needs to just, settle and finding themselves frazzled, just to go sit with a glitter jar for a minute or two. Because, when you're in that state of total frazzlement, you're not going to really be able to focus on what you're doing. And that's one of the things that mindfulness does, giving us this practice and these tools and planting these seeds with the children. Eventually, hopefully they get to that point where they're using this front part of their brain. They know how to come into that place where they're able to, use this front part of our brain with executive functioning, focus, and all of these wonderful things that we want our children to be able to do while they're in school learning. And we all have moments, we all have our, things that set us off. So that's what I always say to the children too, is that the question is, will you ever be challenged? Will you ever find yourself in really difficult situations? We're all going to find ourselves in really tough places in life. The question is, how will you handle it? How can you move through it? And how can we as parents give our kids some tools, even very small tools, and help them to start cultivating these places where we're planting these seeds as they move through. Some of these little things may not seem like big things, but they can grow into big things. And if done every day and often, can really make a big difference in kids' lives. So I think, I think we've covered most everything. That's what we do in the classes. I also read this book. This is a really old book from 1978 or 76. Has anyone ever read the Bird Baylor books? The artwork is just really brilliant, and it's Everybody Needs a Rock. So it goes through this beautiful story of how to choose a very special rock as a child, and talking about, adults don't really know about this stuff really well. You have to do this on your own. You have to go pick something special. You have to smell it. You have to put it in a bathtub and let it sit in some water and let it glisten. And, so it's just like a really brilliant little story. And the artwork is really cool, really, really cool. So we read that one day. The other thing we do at the end of the class, when we're talking about each element, we will do a short sitting meditation. This bowl is what I call sound therapy. Does anyone use a singing bowl or ever had a? Okay. So I'm just going to call it a couple of times. And the idea is just to listen, and just listen until you don't hear it anymore. That's all you have to do. if you want to close your eyes. And now that you're tuned into the sound in the room, you can then bring yourself to notice all the other sounds in the room. Whenever you're ready, you can come back. I'll do it one more time, lightly, just to kind of bring us out. So most kids say, "Wow, that sound makes me feel really that sound makes me feel really calm." So we use that to start the meditation. I'll ring the bell 3 times, and they'll just kind of settle in, listening, get themselves into like that sort of centered, grounded place. I'll give them a few directions, like sitting up nice and tall. Notice your breath. Where do you feel your breath coming in and out? Those kind of things. And I'll do a little bit of a guided meditation. And then at the end, I'll call it again 3 times. And that'll be the end of the meditation. And it's only a few minutes. And each pebble, each element that we're working with will decide what that meditation is, what I'm guiding through, whether we're talking about still water or whatever. The only other big activity that I know that we do, because it's just 5 classes, we do this, I picked this song. Do you remember this song from like the 80s? Desiree was the artist. It's you gotta be bad, you remember that song? So it's a cool, funky song. The kids, most of them are like, I have never heard that song. I'm like, well, here it is. So I play the song, and while the song is playing, I write on the whiteboard and they write on a piece of paper all the words, because she says a lot of words that relate to this work that we've been talking about in class. Strong, brave, wise, a lot of these things, making wise choices and things like that. So they write down all the words that they think relate to this work that we're doing. And then at the end, we talk about it. But it's really cool because it just helps them to just listen to the song very carefully and very closely and pick it out and then talk about it afterwards. And so the books, the video, the song, the practice of meditation, and I think that's pretty much all that we cover. And all the basics. And again, this is a very basic intro to mindfulness and meditation. For them as 4th graders, this is just enough to get them hopefully set on a path. And then I'll come back to them in 5th grade and we'll do a little deeper dive into stuff. So what questions and thoughts do you guys have?
Beyond these 5 days, do the teachers then incorporate any, does it get continued in any way, in a formal way, or is it just sort of like a tool?
It's a very good question. I know that their pebbles, they keep. Last year, they kept them in the class. My encouragement was to allow the kids to use those when they needed them, because that was the purpose of doing this, is to know that that's when, if they need them. They are allowed to bring them home and use them at whatever point the teachers say that they can and want to. And that can be an ongoing conversation.
I just have someone texting that they can't hear. Yes, last year was our first year, and we were a little kind of informal about that, but that is something that we want to go back to. A lot of the teachers were staying in some of the classes, and so I'm going to work with the 4th grade team, about how we continue to incorporate the practice. I think ideally I'd like the pebbles to stay here so that they could use them during the day, and then I know last year that's what we did, and at the end of the year they took the pebbles home with them at the end of the year. So we'll work through some of those steps. Yeah.
Yes. That's just 4th grade. I did really happily find out that some of the fifth graders still have their pebbles from last year. Oh, well, I said, yeah, yeah. We don't in the class that I'm doing. We just don't have the time.
Tiffany Maloney has done those with kids over the years. I don't know particularly where she is with them this year.
Well, August said they were gonna make one next week or something.
Yes, I know she is making them again. I can't remember which grades.
Yeah.
Maybe that's,
And there's always, yeah, right. You want to, with certain children, you want to glue that top.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had one, I forget what happened, that the top got cracked open or something last year. So yeah, but for the most part, they're very careful and aware that they need to be, easy with those. There's some other books up here. These 2 books here are ones that I have used for reference and just help with me parenting, with me developing classes and meditation and mindfulness work. Dr. Christopher Willard, Susan Kaiser Greenland both have more than these books, but they're also just fantastic and chock full of great activities, learning things you can do as you're, at home with your kids, and just really great information and a lot of good references, studies, all the thing. If you need any more proof of why this work is really good for us, these are great books to go from. Yes.
Before we close, just because I'm mindful of time. Logistically, I'm meeting with, Nedra and I both are meeting at the end of the day with the entire 4th grade in one class together to just walk them through the next 5 weeks. It's counting as my cornerstones time, so I'm just going to explain that they'll see us every week for the next 5 weeks. So we will start next week. They'll hear about it today if they haven't heard from you already with the email. And yeah, and I'll, this year, again, this is the 2nd year we've done this, but I can send out some resources with the books and maybe things along the way, parent tips, now that we've incorporated a parent part. So we'll do that. Okay. Thank you. Thanks to the people watching on the video too. Okay.
Oh, and just if so that for those at home, these books are Growing Up Mindful, Christopher Willard, and The Mindful Child by Susan Kaiser Greenland. Okay. Yeah, and these are just 2 other Bird Baylor books that I find. One is this, they're just so lovely. The Other Way to Listen, and The Way to Start a Day. And this one just talks about getting up in the morning early at sunrise and greeting the sun the first thing for your day, and how cultures around the world have been doing that for centuries. And, sort of that ritual and love of like the sun. And, it's very ritualistic in a way, but, it takes us back, and we can relate to that through history, and we can relate to that as recent, because everybody loves to watch the sunrise, right? So that is that. And I hope that I get to know you guys better. Hello. Through the year. I hope that your children come home and share what we're doing. It's okay.